When I was in elementary school, a man I didn't know suddenly threatened me with a knife and kidnapped me. Can any of you imagine being deprived of your freedom for 9 whole years? Hardly given any food, just crouching there, staying still, enduring violence and fear. That was their life. Just because the girl was cute, for that reason alone, he kidnapped and confined her. We will discuss the worst case. The Niigata girl confinement incident. On January 28, 2000, it was discovered that a girl had been confined in a private house in Yotsuya, Saki City, Niigata Prefecture. Actually, this girl, she had gone missing in Sanjo City, Niigata Prefecture in 1990. It was revealed that she was A-chan, a 4th grade elementary school student at the time. The perpetrator of this case was found nearby when she was discovered. Noriyuki Sato, who was 37 years old at the time, had kept her for an unprecedented 9 years and 2 months. It was not only a long-term confinement case. Several books were published after the Niigata Prefectural Police's mishandling was revealed, and it caused a huge public reaction. November 13, 1990. In Sanjo City, Niigata Prefecture, A-chan went missing. By 7 p.m., A-chan's parents had already... A search request was filed, and immediately, more than 100 people, including the prefectural police and school officials, began searching. However, A-chan was not found. On the following day, the 14th, the search expanded to 200 people, and on the 15th, a mobile investigation unit was added. They searched vacant houses and container boxes as well, but these searches yielded no clues, so the possibility of abduction was considered. The investigation continued further, but as there was no progress, it was gradually scaled down. Although there was no progress at all in this case, around January 1996, the person who would later be identified as the culprit who abducted A-chan, Sato's mother, consulted the police about her son's violence, but at that time, the police did not respond. She was advised to go to the public health center. 4 years later, on January 12, 2000, Sato's mother consulted the Saki Public Health Center. A week later, on January 19, staff from the health center visited Sato, but they were unable to meet him. The mother requested a doctor's house call. This decision ultimately led to the discovery of the incident. On January 28, the doctors who visited Sato were on the 2nd floor. Asan was found for the first time in 9 years and 2 months and was taken into protective custody. Based on Asan's testimony, it was revealed that Sato forced her into the trunk of his car while she was on her way home from school and abducted her, as well as details about her time in captivity. She said, "I didn't have shoes, so I couldn't go outside. I was forcibly taken away and was too scared to escape." When she was taken outside by the doctors, she quietly said something. It had been a long time. Due to her life in captivity, her legs had become weak and she couldn't even walk on her own. And later, more would be revealed. Life during her captivity was beyond imagination. Now, here are the details of the incident. November 13, 1999. Sato threatened her with a knife on her way home from school, forced her into the trunk of his car, and drove to his house. Once there, he assaulted her dozens of times. "You can't escape. Obey what I say," he said, pressing a knife to her abdomen. "Want to see what happens if I stab you? I can still bury you in the mountains." For a 9-year-old girl, being threatened with violence by an adult man is terrifying. I think it was nothing but pure terror for her. Even after that, Sato completely took away her freedom, tying her up to prevent her from escaping while he was out. In addition, Sato would instill fear in her by pressing a stun gun to her and discharging it. And if she made a sound, he would punish her. These things were done to her on a daily basis, and she endured the pain while looking at her own arms. Yes, and she was always on the bed. She was also forced to do certain things, and if she didn't obey, she would be punished. There was no toilet or bath, and she had to use plastic bags as a toilet. Amazingly, in 9 years, she was only allowed to take a bath once. That one time was only because she accidentally fell out of bed and got covered in dust. For that reason, she was only allowed to use the shower. This kind of life continued for 9 years. Her leg muscles gradually weakened and her bone mass also decreased, making it difficult for her to walk. As for meals, at first, Sato's mother prepared them. She used to give her late-night snacks, but eventually, it became convenient store rice bowls. From around 1996, she was only given food once a day instead of twice. This had a significant impact, and when she was found, her weight was just 38 kilograms. After she was rescued, she showed symptoms of post-traumatic stress disorder, commonly known as post-traumatic stress disorder. In addition to that, the fact that she was unable to receive an education for 9 years was also highlighted as a major issue, but in her case, there was no decline in intelligence, and her knowledge and vocabulary were comparable to others her age. However, what was seriously affected was her ability to communicate with others. She has trouble meeting with large groups of people. She can't talk to people she's meeting for the first time, and she's afraid of the opposite sex. The 9 years of captivity left her with serious after effects. Sato said that those days were good and he wanted to be with her forever. Reflecting on his defiance, he only revealed why he was found, due to the daily violence and fear. What existed between Shihei Sato and her was one-sided and distorted emotions. She was protected. On February 10th of the following month, it became clear that Sato had a criminal record. About a year before this case, Sato was arrested in Saki City for attempting to assault a 4th grade elementary school girl on her way home from school. He was sentenced to 1 year in prison with a 3-year suspended sentence, but surprisingly, this information was recorded. It was not recorded, in other words. He was not registered on the criminal list, and his name was not on the list of criminals referenced during the search for Ah-chan. If Sato's criminal record had been registered on that list when Ah-chan went missing, there's no doubt that Sato would have emerged as a key person of interest based on the location and the method of the crime. That's what is believed. And then July 10th, 2003, the Supreme Court sentenced Sato to about 14 years, bringing this case to a close. After that, Sato was released from prison around 2015. He did not return to Niigata Prefecture, but instead began living alone in an apartment in Chiba Prefecture. However, in 2017, Sato was found collapsed in his room, and an autopsy confirmed that he had died of natural causes. The exact illness is unknown, but at the time of his death, Sato was in his mid-50s. The mother he had lived with at the time of the incident had passed away while Sato was serving his sentence. That's right. What kind of person was the criminal? Nobuyuki Sato, who stole an important part of a young girl's life. Sato was born on July 15th, 1962. His parents doted on him and called him Boku-chan. Sato was given anything he wanted and was raised in an overprotective environment. Even after he became an adult, his parents continued to call him Boku-chan. He couldn't be satisfied unless everything went exactly the way he wanted. The root of this case lies in the way Sato was raised. When things didn't go his way, he started to resort to violence. The story might jump around a bit, but that's the background. From the time Sato entered technical high school, he started to become isolated in his class. He began skipping school frequently and started taking out his frustrations at home. And then, after graduating from high school, Sato got a job at an auto parts manufacturing company, but he quit after just a few months. After that, he never found another job, and eventually, he even drove his estranged father out of the house. In any case, he lived his life trying to make everything go his way. And then, on June 13th, 1989, Sato tried to lure a 4th grade elementary school student into a vacant lot on their way home from school, but was apprehended and arrested by a school staff member after another child reported it. The following year, this led to the main incident. By the way, when I learned about this case, one question came to my mind. That is, why didn't Sato's mother, who was living with him, notice that he was confining a young girl in their home? As I looked into it, I found that there was also a dark side to the Sato family here. While the girl was being confined, Sato's mother bought a stun gun at a home improvement store. Her son told her things like that, but she kept acting as usual. However, that was until the girl was found. For more than 20 years, she never entered Sato's room. That was because she was afraid of Sato's violence. The most notable example of this is, her mother would spend her time at a place where she could stay from 10 AM to 4 PM every day for 500 yen. That's how it had become, however. In December 1999, her mother finally felt she had reached her limit and consulted a city psychiatric hospital about Sato. Her son's violence was severe. If things didn't go his way, he would hit her. He would even kick me and tie me up so I couldn't even go to the bathroom. It sounds like a very serious situation, but actually, the hospital told her to bring her son in. But there was no way a mother who was afraid of her own son could take him to the hospital. Later, when she consulted the public health center, 7 staff members from the center visited the Sato residence, and the incident was discovered. They realized that someone was being confined on the 2nd floor of the house. The main reason was the fear that the mother had towards Sato. She did not get involved with him at all. Even though they were under the same roof, she had no idea what he was doing. That was exactly what happened after she was confined. For about 9 years, this was the reason why she was not found. In this case, the failures of the Niigata Prefectural Police at the time were revealed one after another. One was, as I mentioned earlier, that they forgot to register Sato on the criminal list. There were also problems with the announcement made after this case was uncovered. If I go into detail, it will take a long time, so I'll summarize it briefly this time. Before Sato committed this case, the public health center had repeatedly requested the police to take action regarding Sato, but they did nothing at all. At the press conference, they explained as if to hide this, saying there were no problems with the police's actions. Furthermore, the incident... At that time, the prefectural police chief was involved in illegal mahjong gambling and ignored reports about the incident, and because of this, the prefectural police chief resigned, and 9 people involved in the false statements were disciplined. A few days later, those said to be involved in the initial investigation mistakes. 5 more people were disciplined, and in the end, it was announced that 3 additional members who participated in the illegal mahjong gambling would also be punished. The misconduct of the Niigata prefectural police was even brought up in the national diet, and in our prefecture, another problem arose, this time involving the media. Mr. A, who was protected, was deeply hurt. However, every day there were reports that seemed to dig into Mr. A's emotional wounds. Why? Did she not run away? Do people really believe that a child dominated by fear and subjected to violence by an adult man could escape on their own? This case made me realize just how precious ordinary everyday life truly is. Even when we are living our daily lives, it can suddenly, in a moment, in just a few seconds, it can be lost so easily. Peace is not something we can take for granted. We live in a world where we never know when or who might get caught up in an incident. I hope that everyone can learn to take actions that will help protect themselves and those close to them. I can only hope that Mr. A, who was harmed in this case, is living as happily as possible. That's all for today. Thank you very much for watching.